Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. Ryan Blaser, welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to chat today. You are a wealth of knowledge for a lot of things, but especially when it comes to health in the home. So, with that, I would love for you to just introduce yourself to the audience, tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you built Test My Home.
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Blaser. I live in Boise, Idaho, and I have a company where we do environmental consulting. We basically create healthy living environments for people. So we take the living space, which is basically anything outside of the skin and to the walls of the home. We look at the walls of the house like our second skin, and we think about the home like a biological living being. And so when we look at it that way, we treat it a little bit differently. And we know that things inside of our environment can affect us. So the air we breathe in, the water we're drinking, the light, the electronic exposure around us, mold, bacteria, chemicals, all those things play a big role in overall health and wellness. And so when we look at those things, we need to address what things are affecting us and what things do we need to change, things do we need to add. I've been doing environmental toxicology work for about 27 years. Towards the end of my 20s, I moved into a house that had a pretty big mold problem. I didn't realize it at the time. I got really, really sick. I didn't know what it was. I went to 3 or 4 different doctors till they finally figured out, hey, you have a big mold toxicity problem in your body, and moved out. It was about a 2-year process from when I got sick to when I fully got better. And because of that, I had some pretty severe allergies. Still to this day, I can't do eggs or gluten. My body rejects a lot of that stuff just because the the damage that the mold did to the body. But other than that, it was pretty much full recovery. But it really opened my eyes to some of the dangers in the house. So, we started this company to go into people's homes to find these hidden toxins, these hidden dangers, and uncover them because they can create a wide range of problems from psychological to neurological to allergy symptoms to just fatigue, not feeling good. And just overall health and wellness can greatly be decreased if you're in the home with some of these toxins.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, a lot of men and especially fathers, well, especially girl dads, are wired to provide and protect. But I really want to talk about that protect part. And I think a lot of dads, lock the doors, they lock the windows, they scan for any physical threats when they're walking down the street with their daughter. But there's so many invisible intruders inside of the homes that dads may be accidentally ignoring. So, would love to hear from you about what some of those invisible intruders are.
Yeah, we focus on 6 main categories. So the first one's going to be air quality. What are we breathing in? How much fresh air are we getting? Are we breathing in microplastics or chemicals or toxins or VOCs? But the second one is going to be the chemicals that we're bringing into our house. Are we using pesticides or Roundup out on the yard? Or are we using forever chemicals like nonstick coating in the kitchen, things like that can get into our body? The third thing is going to be mold and bacteria. Do we have any mold growth? Do we have any water damage? Do we have these little microorganisms that are growing in the house that can affect us, putting off mycotoxins, making us sick? The fourth thing is going to be water, what we're drinking, but not only what we're drinking, but what we're bathing and showering in. We can get a lot of exposure. A lot of the things coming in from the tap, from the city utilities, are not healthy these days. There's a lot of microplastics, there's pharmaceuticals, there's the forever chemicals, there's heavy metals in there. And so we want to make sure we're filtering that out. Uh, Fifth thing is going to be EMF exposure. So that's the technology that we have in our house. So the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, are you living by a high voltage power line or um, cell phone tower, 5G? The sixth thing is going to be the lighting that we have. So our eyes are tuned to the sun. So it's no coincidence that we sleep at night when the sun goes down and we're awake when the sun is up. That's because our eyes are trained to that. So during the day when there's full spectrum, that suppresses melatonin in the body. And ancestrally, when the sun went down, we had candles and fires and lanterns, and that was more in the amber and the red glow. And that's what triggers our body to start producing melatonin to get us ready for sleep. So when we go into the home, we kind of address those 6 main pillars.
Mm. Yeah, so fascinating. I think that these are prevalent in every household, but we're not thinking about these day to day, especially the ones that are truly invisible, like air and EMF exposure. But I do want to start off with air because obviously that's your number one. That's a huge one. Where should dads look? How do they know that they have good air quality or bad air quality? I know you've mentioned that indoor air can be 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. So, how do dads know and what can they do about it?
Yeah, and teenage daughters' rooms can be 20 to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air
Oh my gosh.
just because of all of the personal care products. So on average, males use 4 to 5 personal care products per day, deodorants, aftershave things, and females use up to 20 on average personal care products a day. Now, if those products contain phthalates, there can be hormone disruptors. They can have fragrances in them. They can have um, heavy metals. They can have all kinds of VOCs or chemicals that mix with the body's chemistry and can cause a lot of issues. And so, when we're raising our daughters and we're bringing them up, and skin and hormones, all these things are very important. And so we don't want anything to mess that up. And so when you're putting all these chemicals on your body, or perfumes and sprays and lotions and all this stuff, really important to make sure we're going through and make sure those things are non-toxic.
Mm. Yeah, good call. And if you do have, I mean, actually, in any case, people should look into getting a Jasper or another air filter system just to get rid of any of the toxins in the air. Are there any other tools for protecting the air beyond the air filters?
Yeah, two main things. One is fresh air. So a lot of modern homes are built really airtight, and so the only time we're getting fresh air in is when we're open the doors or open the windows. So if you live in a really cold or really hot or humid climate, a lot of times the doors and windows are shut really tight, and then everything that we're using in the house is building up in the home, and it doesn't get a chance to breathe and air out. So it's really important to air out the home, let the home breathe. 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, go through and open up doors and windows, get that fresh air going through the house. The only reason you wouldn't want to do that is if it's really polluted outside, maybe you have fires going on, or if you're in downtown LA and it's really polluted that day, then we want to keep things closed and use air filters. But for the most time, you want to get things aired out. But the second thing is the filtration. You mentioned Jasper. That's one of my favorite air filters. I have one of those in every room. I have one sitting right here in the office, and that filters all the particulates out of the air. So if we were to measure what's floating around in our air, it's made up of dead skin cells, of insect parts, insect feces, broken down foams and fibers, pollen, bacteria, microplastics, and heavy metals. And anything that they're spraying around in the air, all that stuff is getting into our house, and then we can breathe that in. So if we have good air filtration, it's going to capture all that stuff in the filter before it has a chance to get into our lungs.
Mm. Wow, I didn't even know there were so many things in the air. um, well, okay, so now speaking of things that I didn't know about, water is another big one that you talk about, and I recently looked up the on the EWG water database where you can type in your zip code and see what's in your tap water, and I was so alarmed at all the different toxins and chemicals and everything in the water. So, for the dads listening, what can they do about the water? What are your top recommendations, and what's something that we should be really looking out for?
Yeah, definitely you want to be drinking out of an RO system. So you can buy an RO filtration system for 500 to 1,000 bucks. You install it underneath the sink. You can run a line over to your refrigerator for your drinking water there and for your ice. But definitely want to be drinking out of an RO system. As far as what you're showering and bathing in, you can buy like Jolie. There's a couple other different brands that you can screw onto the shower head that will filter the water. But I recommend just getting a really good whole home system. Echo makes a good one. O4 is a good one. All of those are going to filter out some of these contaminants before they have a chance to get into the body.
Thank you. And then I wanted to go back to some of the things that are in the girls' room because, obviously this is a podcast for dads with daughters and all the dads listening who want to protect their daughters in the home. You mentioned looking at the physical care products. Well, another way to do that is to search on the EWG database or to have their daughters search this just to understand what is in their products, maybe their hairspray or face products, everything that they're putting on a daily basis. But if you could biohack your daughter's room, tell me everything. What would you how would you start, and what kind of products would you put in there?
Yeah, so I have a 12-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old daughter, so very familiar with this process. And sometimes it can be hard because they get gifts from other people or they a nice perfume they want to bring into the house. But what I do is we have the EWG app on our phone, and there's also another app called Think Dirty and Skin Deep. And so you can look on these different apps and you can actually scan the barcode of a lot of these products and then it rates it on a scale how toxic it is for the body. And I just educate them and teach them about it. And of course, they're not perfect. And I got to go through their room once in a while and be like, hey, we got to get rid of some of this stuff. It's starting to build up here. But we need to go through and say, look, the acne that you're getting or these hormonal things or why you're not feeling the best, a lot of it's because of the chemicals that you're putting on your body and on your skin. We want you looking young and beautiful as long as possible. And so let's use more natural products, going through their products together, scanning these things and saying, look, this is toxic and this is what it does to the body. Let's go ahead and get rid of this, but let's go to the store and let's replace it with something different. And you go to like the Whole Foods or, Primally Pure is a great option for skincare products. It's all non toxic. So there's a lot of options out there to replace some of these toxic products, but you just kind of got to go through, find the ones that are toxic, get rid of them and replace them with non toxic options.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's a great takeaway for the dads listening in general because this isn't supposed to scare you and tell you, "Oh, there's all these things that you should be afraid of in your home." There are very easy replacements for almost everything. So it's not about, never using water again or not breathing when you're inside, but instead finding clean alternatives to what you're already using. And so for your daughter, clean makeup, clean hair products, that there's so many out there, but you do have to do the research and find out which ones, are cleaner than others, and clean doesn't mean expensive. I think that's another big takeaway for, dads with daughters, especially in, like, the makeup and hair world. There are so many affordable, clean brands that are and then there's a lot of really expensive, designer brands that are actually really toxic. So, it's all about the swaps and the alternatives, that are healthier.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of replacements that you can do, and you can Google this with ChatGPT. There's a lot of resources now. You just have to do a little bit of the research. But yeah, there's a lot of
Mhm.
really healthy alternatives that are less expensive in most cases.
Definitely. So, okay, let's talk about EMFs and Wi-Fi, radiation, all that, because this is something very top of mind for me. My husband always puts his phone like on in his pocket or, in the area, and I'm like, no, because I know what it can do to sperm, and obviously, where I've talked about this before, but I'm very cognizant of these things. But what else, like, why is this a problem, first of all? Because I think a lot of people are kind of thinking, can't see it, don't believe it. What is the research there? And then what can we do about it?
Yeah, there is research on that. If you go to Google Scholar and type in research for RF radiation and testosterone or sperm count, there are studies out there. It's a real thing. And it does reduce testosterone and sperm count. And so you want to protect ourselves. And in females, it can mess with the hormones as well. So if we can reduce exposure as much as we can, now, of course, telling a teenage daughter to not use their phone as much, that's a pretty difficult thing to do, but if we can at least say, hey, how about at night when you're sleeping, let's make sure it's on full airplane mode. Or maybe when you're at the dinner table eating with the family, we put it on airplane mode. Or we just carve out times during the day where it's a technology free time where we can
Mm,
just maybe not have our phones on us all the time. And it's not just the EMF exposure, it's all the other toxic things in the phone as well. The EMF is one part of it, but getting our kids to use less screen time, I mean, if someone could figure that out, I mean, that's the $1 million thing right there, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, no kidding. I just read The Anxious Generation, and it was alarming how bad social media, phones, technology are for children, especially during those prime brain developmental years. So, yeah, just definitely something to look out for as a dad who wants to protect your daughter. I love the idea of just no phone time, being present at the dinner table or getting outside, going for a hike or a walk together without technology. It's amazing to be fully present. Um, and speaking of daughters and technology, actually, when I was with you in person recently, you told me a really cute story about how your daughter texted you with a photo of her meal, and she asked if you were proud of her. And I just wanted to bring this up because not only are you this health expert and someone who's helping dads protect their daughters and protect the homes, but you are a girl dad. And I thought this was super cute because, from a female's perspective, knowing that your dad is proud of you is so important. It means the world to us. So it's really cute that your daughter's like, looking for that and wanting that kind of that pride out of you.
Yeah, no, that is super important. I'm glad you brought that up and you bring a little tear to my eye. But yeah, no, that's super important. And we need to be aware of that. Our daughters look up to us, and we need to make sure that we're reinforcing that, when we see the things that they're doing good, to remind them of that and let them know that, because that is important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I talk a lot about in my book, telling your daughter how proud you are of her over and over. And it's something that I think men don't need as much of. So sometimes you kind of forget that we, us women, daughters, do. Those words are so impactful to us. I think men find pride in themselves more easily without that external validation. And that's just kind of a natural male versus female characteristic. So recognizing that your daughter is different from you and those words are actually so powerful are very important. And I love that, the context of that text was you were encouraging her to eat healthy in a very like secure way, not, forcing anything on her, and which supports really healthy body image and just making healthier choices and enjoying making those choices. So I think that's another really important thing that dads can do to help protect their daughters.
Yeah, and one thing I found too, because there's a fine line there that's really hard, because we don't want to shame them or anything. But I found, I just you do by example. So when I'm eating a healthy meal, I'm saying, "Look, I mean, I'm healthy. Look how I look, how I feel. This is because I'm eating healthy." And I really try to focus it on me so that they watch me doing it instead of putting it on them. Like, you need to eat healthy. I try to be the example, and of course, because we know
Mm,
they're looking up to us already, and so if we can set that example to them, they're watching us, and so being very careful about what we do in their presence is really important.
that's so true. Yeah. I mean, they say actions speak louder than words, right? But this is 100% true for parenting. No matter what you say, if you tell your daughter, "Oh, you should do this," or "Try this out," but you're not living in alignment with what the words that you're speaking, then she's not going to pay attention to those words. She has to see you take the action to be inspired to do the thing. So I think that's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I think it's true, going back to, keeping your home clean and having a passion for that. If you only said, "You need to get rid of all your beauty products because they're toxic," but you're over here using your products that are also toxic,
Right.
then she's gonna be like, "No," and, so, yeah, I think that's a really important point.
Yeah. Gotta lead by example. Absolutely. They're watching.
Uh, yes, always. So we talked a little bit about, or a lot about, inside the home and what you can do to protect your daughters and your family there. But when it comes to outside, so maybe the lawns or the backyard, what are some other things that dad should be looking out for?
So one thing, like if you have a pest problem, pest control, like we have a pool out back, and my daughters like to go lay by the pool. We don't have the pest control company spray any toxic chemicals around that area. We have them use a non-toxic um, organic blend that has essential oils. But especially where they're laying, where they're sitting, where they're eating, if they're out on the grass, you want to keep those areas really clean. And so weeds are another thing. We don't want to spray chemicals for weed control on the lawn if they're out there doing gymnastics and they're playing around on the lawn. We want to keep these areas all non-toxic and chemical free.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, I think for anyone who brings in help with cleaning the house or, mowing the lawn, that kind of thing, I'm glad you brought that up because you do have control over the products that are used. So even if somebody comes in to clean the house and they have their whole, setup, you can give them the right products to use. And cleaning products are another big one that we haven't really touched on, but they can be very toxic. So, what are your thoughts there? What should people be looking out for? Are there specific ingredients, or is it just go with a brand that we trust and swap out the rest?
Yeah. So as far as Cleaning products, Branch Basics is a really good go-to. They have a full range of products that you can use, and they were developed. The person that developed their daughter had chemical sensitivities and issues, and it was actually the mom, not the dad, but the mom was the one that created this line for the daughter, and was using these products, and then it became popular, and they made a big company out of it. But honestly, for 90% of your cleaning, you can use a mixture of half distilled water, half distilled vinegar, and a little lemon essential oil. And that mixture right there will clean 90% of your surfaces. You don't need any of these toxic products. And that's so healthy, you could even drink that mix right there. That's how
Wow.
non-toxic it is. And it's cheap too. It's a lot cheaper than the cleaning supplies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a prime example that more expensive does not mean better for your health. Yeah, I love that. I love Branch Basics. I also like Attitude. I think they're an EWG verified brand, but yeah, there's great options out there for dishwasher, also for your laundry detergent and laundry sheets. There's brands like Molly Suds, again, Attitude. There's, yeah, so much out there. I love the EWG Skin Deep though, because it just gives you all the information that you need.
Yeah, makes it really easy. Yeah, if you have those apps and you're using those apps, it really makes it easy. One just rule of thumb to stay away from is fragrances and perfumes. Anytime you see that on the label, that's a big no-no. They have the phthalates in them. They're known endocrine disruptors. They do mess with our hormones. So we definitely want to stay away from the perfumes and the fragrances. Unless it's
Mm,
essential oil base, if it's a natural, but it will specifically say that on it, that's fine. But if it says perfume or fragrance, you want to stay away from that.
mm. And so when it comes to endocrine disruptors, what is happening inside of your daughter's body if she is using these kinds of products?
So from my understanding, and this is more of a deeper medical question, but from my understanding is that it mimics some of the hormones and it messes up the hormone flow in the body, which in the females is a lot more complicated than in the males.
Mhm.
And so we don't want to do anything to disrupt that system, especially when they're teenagers. And so, and again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the science behind that. I just know that that is one of the things, one of the pathways that it disrupts.
That no, that makes sense, and I could imagine that that would and again, I'm not a doctor either, but I could imagine that that would affect things like fertility and also a woman's natural cycle of going through the hormonal changes throughout the 28 days on average. Tends to lead to a lot of different kind of mood swings and this and that, but if they're not on birth control, they're using, toxic-free chemicals, it's a much smoother process, but when things get disrupted and hormones are changed, even just a slight drop in progesterone or rise in it can really affect mood, and, so I could imagine, again, not a doctor, but I could imagine that if they are using these kinds of products, that they might be having different changes in mood and temper and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, mood and skin. Those are the 2 biggest things I see with
Mm,
my daughters, and when the I see a breakout happen, it's like, "Alright, what did you eat?" or "What chemicals are you using?" Like, "What's going on? Something happened." 'Cause a lot of times it's internal when we see the skin
mm.
issues, and they say, "Oh, well, we'll put this cream on her, there's pimple reducers and all that." But no, a lot of times it's the chemicals we're putting on our body or the food that we're eating that's causing that. Seed oils is a big one too that can cause that, mess with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I was just talking to my little sister about this because she was visiting and there's this ice cream spot called Creamy Boys right by us, and it's so good. But we had it every night, and both of us were like breaking out a little bit. And we were talking about how it's so interesting when you eat a bunch of sugar after not just eating clean in general. It really does show how much it affects you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just did the bet with my daughter, my 12-year-old, that if she could go seed oil free for a whole month, I guarantee that she wouldn't have a breakout because she was starting to get some zits, and at 12, she's freaking out because she always had smooth skin, and because she was eating a lot of these chips and snacks that had the seed oils, I said, "Okay, let's do a little experiment. Do no month, and I'll give you $250 if you can do it." He did it and just didn't get any zits on her, so it was a good experiment.
Wow.
So hopefully
Yeah, that's
that'll
amazing.
teach her. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard
definitely.
though.
Because
Seed oils are in everything, so it's really
I
hard.
know.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, especially if you eat out and you have no idea what's gonna be in it, so it's almost guaranteed that there will be some exposure. Um, yeah, no, that's really interesting. My husband and I did the carnivore diet when we were getting ready for our wedding, and we had the most like the best impacts on our health and our bodies and our mood and our energy. And it was crazy. But one of the things that I think was a main reason was because there was no seed oils, right? We're just using butter or ghee or beef tallow. And it sounds like this crazy diet, or at least it did in the past. And now it's like, no, this actually makes a lot of sense. And it felt so good. And you were never hungry, you know? But just a interesting side note.
Yeah, no, it is good when you eliminate a lot of those things and the preservatives and the natural flavors and whatever that entails. Yeah. So like carnivore diet, and then you just start adding in like some fresh fruit and some vegetables. It's just some clean one single ingredient items, and that's a really good diet right there.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so I do want to go back to you being a girl dad and talk a little bit more about your relationship with your daughters. You're in the teenage years, so there's obvious challenges that come with that, but doesn't have to always be. But yeah, tell me about your relationship with your daughters, maybe some of your favorite memories so far.
You know, it's pretty good. We do boating in the summer. That's the big thing, and the
Mm,
girls are already getting excited and getting ready for that. They're making their boat playlists and getting everything ready. But yeah,
cute.
we'll go out a couple times a week to the lake during the summer and into the fall a little bit. But my 16-year-old, I'm taking her to this emotional health and wellness retreat this weekend in Denver, and her. So I'm really excited about that. That's gonna be really fun. But I think it's important, I try to do the daddy-daughter dates once or twice a month where I take them out and go do something special and show them how a lady's supposed to be treated.
Oh.
But yeah, having a relationship with your daughter as a dad is the most important thing. You're their first love, and you're the example that you're setting of how a man should treat a lady.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very real. Like, I've had a lot of conversations with my girlfriends about how our dad set the bar for what we would expect moving forward, and we've had these conversations with very positive light because we've married amazing men who have, even exceeded the bar, and it's been amazing to see, but I have to thank our dads for setting that example in the first place and really treating us well, and, I think those daddy-daughter dates that you're describing, or just the one-on-one time with your daughters is what really shapes that, because that's where the real connection comes from, that's where that individual bond comes from, and that's where the daughter is paying the most attention to you and the way you're treating her in those moments.
Yeah, yeah, and how you're treating your spouse too. All those things are really important. They're watching all that stuff.
Absolutely. It goes back to what we were saying earlier where, it's actions, not the words. They're always watching and they're going to mimic what they see, not what they hear.
Yep,
So,
100%.
yeah, great. And then if you think forward to the impact that you want to have on them and the legacy that you want to leave, what are some of the things that come to mind in terms of characteristics or, lessons, life lessons that you want to impart on your daughters?
Well, and this is a funny one because I was just talking about it with a friend of mine yesterday. I grew up on a farm, and some of my friend and we had a pretty, you would say, tough life. We worked a lot. It was really hard, and we didn't have a lot of money, and it was a lot of work, little vacation. Now, I'm blessed with more money now, and so is my friend. And we were talking about how our kids are might be more spoiled, more entitled because we're giving them all the things that we never had, and not they don't have as hard of a life. So I feel like there's kind of a balance there, because growing up, I was like, I'm gonna spoil my kids. I'm gonna take care and do all these things. But now I'm doing that. They turn out a little bit more entitled, a little bit more spoiled than I'd like them to, and so I kind of want to reverse that a little bit. And so, I'm even thinking like maybe sell the big nice house and go move out on farm somewhere and teach them how to do some hard work. But I think there's a balance there because we want to love and nurture and spoil our kids, but we also want to teach them about hard work, and we want to teach them about responsibility. And we want to make sure that when they go out into the world, that they know how to do the things that they need to do. And so for me, it's like I try to, if my girls can do that, or if I can help them do that, then I put it on them to do it and not do it for them. I'm there to help them, I'm there to teach them, but I'm really careful not to spoil them too much. But that's
Mm.
a hard thing. Sometimes I get called Disneyland dad, and that can be a bad thing.
No, this is a really interesting conversation that I haven't had on this podcast before, and I think it's super important because a lot of dads face this, and it's kind of this balance, especially with daughters, right? It's like you wanna nurture and take care and provide, but also you wanna help them be prepared for the real world, or adulthood. So where is that balance? And it's something my husband and I were just talking about because he grew up on a farm too, and he was saying that his dad made him chop wood. I forget the exact story, but I think it was like he wasn't allowed to come in for dinner until all the pile of wood was chopped, right? And I was like, "Okay, so you learned a lot in these moments. How do we teach our kids that when we live by the beach and there's not wood to chop, right?" And he was like, "Oh, we'll make sure that they have things to do before, like, chores and physical labor." And I was like, "But what about our daughter?" And he said, "Same thing, she's chopping wood." I'm kinda like, "I don't know about this. We need to, like, hash this out a little bit more." But yeah, what are your thoughts there? Even if you're just thinking of this for the first time, I'd love to just kind of brainstorm about how we can set up children for success and push them to do hard things and to overcome hard things, but without, you know, going so far where the daughter is chopping wood all night.
Yeah, that is such a fine balance too. And me growing up, I had a similar situation. I had to chop wood, had to mow the lawn, had to go feed the cows, and all these things that had to be done before I got to do any fun stuff. And I actually grew up a little bit resentful, honestly. Like man, I had such a hard childhood. Like I would butt heads with my parents, and it only was till I was later in life where I'm like, wow, this actually taught me a lot of good work ethics, and because of that, I'm ahead of a lot of these other people that had the easy cushion life because I learned how to work. And so now, and as an adult, I truly appreciate that. And I've come to my parents many times and thanked them and apologized for being a little brat, when I was a kid. And arguing about this stuff. And so it's hard because in the moment when we're raising our daughters, when we're being hard on them, they don't see that as love and they don't see the what we're doing for them and how that helps them. And of course we want our daughters to love us and look up for us and we want to give them everything. And so I don't have the good answer for that balance because, you know, in that tough love and in that resentment that my parents had or that I had for my parents growing up, it taught me a lot that now I really appreciate, but in the moment I didn't. And so for my daughters, how I try to do that, kind of like I mentioned, if it's something that they can do themselves or I can help them do, I will do that with them or let them do it for themselves. But I'm not going to do things for them that they can't do themselves because then I feel like that teaches entitlement. Um, but if it's truly something they can't do, then I will do that for them or provide that for them. But if they want something and they can go get a job and earn the money, I'll teach them how to do that. I'll show them the process and help them through that process, but not do it for them. And to me, kind of that's where I try to draw the line. Hopefully, I'm doing a good job. I guess we'll see when they get older, but um, who knows? It's a hard balance right there.
Mhm. Yeah, it's almost like being a guide for them rather than doing everything for them. So, yeah, I think that's a really great way to go about it, a great principle to live by. But yeah, it's hard because I think my husband would relate to what you said about not enjoying childhood in the moment, or, some elements of it, but being so grateful now because even from my perspective, I think most of the things that I admire so much about him come from him working on a farm, growing up on a horse farm, like all the things that came with that and taking care of the animals and like chopping the wood, the tough love that came with all those responsibilities, and I know his dad especially was tough on him, but it was all for the best, and his dad loves him so much, and I see that now especially because I didn't get to see the earlier years, but I think I admire all of those traits that he developed through that hard work. So, but I guess another thing is he's a son, not a daughter, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, but also, yeah, I think it's important to teach daughters things that will help them in their future. And his sister, my sister-in-law, is extremely street smart, competent, really just sharp. And I'm sure, again, that probably came from these real life lessons that she got growing up. So yeah, I think, one thing that my dad did too is he would always teach us about cars and how to change a tire or how to check your oil. And what was really helpful for us is he would teach us or show us, but then the next week or so, he would make us do it and he would watch us do it. So it was kind of like what you're saying, where he's not just taking a responsibility off our plate. He's helping us understand how to do it so we could do it ourselves and set us up for success in the future. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point that you made.
Yeah, no, and that's a perfect example, changing the oil or changing the tire. If they have a flat tire, instead of just go do it for them, let's do it together. Let me show you how. Here's the jack. Here's how we do it and teach them. That's super important. And I think err on the side of pushing them to do the hard things, even though that's hard sometimes. And sometimes it's a lot easier just for us to do it for them. But going through that process, even if they push back, I think it's really important to have them do the hard things and know
Mhm.
at the end of the day, we're doing them a service in the future. It may not be the best right now. It might be kind of hard and they may not like it, but I think in the future, we're really setting them up for success.
Yeah. And I think back to the times where I asked my parents for permission to do something, like go somewhere with friends or that kind of situation, and they said no. And one of the excuses that they would use is because I love you. And if I didn't love you, I would let you go to this. And so that was a really interesting thing to hear as a child because I was upset that I wasn't allowed to do something. But then it was out of love, and they made sure I knew that, and even when I would be I would have some sort of comeback or excuse or whatever, um, I would go reflect on it, and I would actually think, "Okay, well, I love them too," and I'll respect that decision, so there's ways to frame it, I think, where you can push them to do hard things and then also tell them it's out of love and maybe even reflect after the fact and be like, "What did we learn here?" Again, I'm doing this to set you up for success. And yeah, just making sure that everything kind of has a positive light to it.
Yeah. So in the moment, did you see it as love or was it like, were you resentful about that?
I mean, I was frustrated for sure. One example is I was on a indoor soccer team and we kind of kept moving up and up and up. And I got to the world championship, or first we won nationals, and then we went to the world championship. And it was actually in Texas. It was supposed to be in Costa Rica, but the swine flu broke out. And we played against all these different teams and we ended up winning, which was super fun. But during that time, I met this boy, Juan Pablo from Mexico, and I really liked him. I had a total crush on him, and we got each other's email addresses, and so we were emailing back and forth. And about a month after that, when I, had already returned home and everything, he asked me to be his girlfriend. And so I went downstairs. I was like so excited. I was like beaming. This is the first guy that's ever asked to be or for me to be his girlfriend. I told my parents, "Can I have a boyfriend, Juan Pablo in Mexico?" And they were like, "No." And it wasn't even that he lived in Mexico or anything. I mean, I'm sure that was part of it, but it was like, "No, we're like, no, you're not gonna do that." And I was like devastated, crying. "Why not? Like, don't you trust me?" And it's like, it's not about that. We love you. And if we didn't love you, we'd let you do whatever you want. But we actually really care. And this doesn't make sense right now. He lives in another country. At the time, it wasn't even you couldn't text anyone in the other country, and it's like, "We wanna protect you." There's all kinds of things that, don't make sense here. So, I forget exactly how the conversation goes. I just remember them saying no and me being really upset about it, but at the end of the day, they explained that they loved me, and that's why they were doing this, and that's really the takeaway is, like, explaining your no's or explaining your actions or your pushes, right? So that your children understand why you're doing that and it's not out of, control or demanding or, whatever they might be feeling at the time.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's super good. Explain, because I think we've all heard that when we were younger. Like, I'm doing this for your own good. It's for your own benefit. You'll understand later. Well, you explain why, then I'm smart.
Mhm.
I can listen and understand. So, yeah, explaining the why, I think that's super important.
Exactly. Well, we are coming up on time here, but I would love for you to just finish with one final piece of advice for all the girl dads out there.
Yeah, I mean, just give your daughters as much love as you can. They need it, especially now in these times. It's hard with social media and they're comparing themselves. I think self-esteem is such a big issue. Show them the love, show them the kindness, show them that you are proud of them, like we talked about in the beginning. I think all those things are just super important. That's something I remind myself daily with my girls, and hopefully that pays off.
Well, thank you, Ryan. You're doing a great job, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, where can everyone go to find you?
.com. So if you want to make a healthy environment for your girls and your family, Go to my website. We have remote testing kits where we can send out equipment to test for some of these things. We can come out in person. I do a lot of online consultation work for people. Think of me like your fitness coach or your nutrition coach or just a home doctor. I make sure that your home is healthy for you and your family.
Love to hear it. Well, thanks, Ryan. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to Girl Dad, the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.